Pollack, what's the most important factor that'll decide this game?
Georgia's offense. I mean, it's very simple. I know what I'm going to get from Georgia's defense. I know what I get from Florida's offense and Florida's defense. It's Georgia's offense. Can they create big plays on the outside? This is an offense that's been run the football down your throat and be able to play action and create big plays. That has not been the case this season. And so I think Jake Fromm and his new wide receivers are going to be center stage after a bye. And what did you come up with, and how does this offense look besides the game?
Yeah, David, Jake Fromm just really hasn't seen like himself these last 2 weeks in the passing game. He's got a lot of pressure with a really inexperienced receiver group going against a good secondary from Florida and potentially a great pass rush if Grenard and Zuniga make it back on. I'm going to flip the other side of the ball. I'm going to say Florida's defense and their ability to stop the run. That's something the Gators haven't been great at doing their last 2 games. They give up 9 yards a carry against LSU. They give up 217 rushing yards against South Carolina. A lot of explosive runs. And Kirk, we've seen since week 0, you saw it up close and personal. Gators not necessarily a great tackling secondary. So I think getting Grenard and Zuniga will help and maybe create some TFLs in the backfield. But going up against the biggest offensive line in college football and one of the best running backs in DeAndre Swift and a good group of backs, the Gators have to be able to stop the run.
Well, I think you can get the linebackers down because you don't necessarily respect the vertical passing game. Because I think Fromm's throwing the ball well with the high efficiency throws, but there are a lot of short to intermediate throws. They're 106th in the nation at big plays or explosives in the passing game. And it's not Jake Fromm. It's not the offensive line. It's not Swift. It's just this inexperienced group of wide receivers have not come along maybe the way they had hoped. But against Florida, if they don't stretch the field, that Gators defense that you're talking about, Jesse, I see them with 8, 9 guys up close to the line of scrimmage, basically saying to Fromm and those receivers, hey, beat our corners man to man, and then we'll back out. But until you make us back out, we're going to load that line of scrimmage and take away your strength, Joey, which is the running game and that short, quick throws from Jake Fromm.
I'm going to look at both quarterbacks in this situation. Jesse, you mentioned Jake Fromm hadn't looked great the last 2 games. All his interceptions, he has 3 of them on the season, were in the one game. And then the last game they played, they were in a torrential downpour. So I'm going to sort of give him a pass on the last one. We've seen Jake Fromm play at a high level and complete over 70% of his balls in this season. And you mentioned Grenard and Zuniga being back. He might not have time to stretch the field. He might have to get out of his hands because those 2 are so good at rushing the passer. And Trask has stepped in for Felipe Franks and been terrific so far. If he can continue to play the way he is, and when you talk about getting Tony back give him a big play wide receiver out wide, if he can just do what he's done, he doesn't have to go in and beat the world, but still be consistent the way he is, Florida offensively will have a chance to win this game. And so I'm looking at both these quarterbacks and who can come in and have the best game and not make mistakes.
You know, I think one of the things that we overlook just because Georgia is so talented is the fact that they have 2 new coordinators this year. And Kirk, I thought what you said was interesting about the receivers being inexperienced. They have some talent there. How much does the lack of explosiveness in the passing game you put on that as opposed to the new offensive coordinator, James Coley? Maybe it's a structural thing or maybe it's a comfort thing with him calling plays, running the offense now. How much of that is a valid critique?
Well, yeah, without being in the meeting rooms and knowing, I have no idea how much or to what extent that that's being missed. I know Jim Chaney is an outstanding offensive coordinator, and I know from doing a lot of their playoff games and big bowl games that they were step for step. Even going back to Fromm in his freshman year, after they lost to Jordan-Hare, they bounced back and ended up playing and ended up having a heck of a run that year. Came up a little bit short against Bama, but that's a good point, a fair point. Coley's capable, David, but you lose an offensive coordinator and a guy that you really grew up in the system with. I think maybe it's a combination of the 2. They're still trying to feel each other out from a play calling standpoint, but without question, there's potential on the perimeter, David, and you see it all the time down there. We just haven't seen it in the games in 2019.
No, and what you saw in the loss to South Carolina was a lot of man coverage from South Carolina, a lot of physical play, and Georgia's wide receivers didn't win. You know what else you saw? And we talk about whether you want to blame OC, whether you want to blame quarterback. 2 of Jake Fromm's picks in that game weren't his fault. One was a wrong route, or incorrect route. Another one, ball goes right through the receiver's hands. So I think the receivers have to do a better. And listen, guys, if y'all and we're all watching these teams, Swift is a dynamic receiver. You got to find ways to throw him the football. James Cook comes in off the bench, and you can tell he's dynamic. So I think it's manufacturing ways to get those guys. Alabama last week was down their quarterback. You saw the spitting on the perimeter really quick and make a throwback to a tight end, making things very simple and very easy. I think they have to find a way to do that and make it easier for them.
What's up? Thank you so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. Don't forget to download the ESPN app, and if you want more premium content, which you do, make sure that you subscribe to ESPN+. See you soon.